What's going on, guys? Today I want to show you some of the fun ranged builds you can destroy Remnant 2 with. These are all going to be different and not just the same hug skills every single time. Try to make use of some different play styles. Each can be customized a bit when it comes to trinkets, but the idea should get you in the right direction. Do pay attention to the concoctions, however, as they play a pretty large role in ranged builds now that mod generation and weapon spread have been modified. So let's check them out. We have the classic Deceit build. This is the weapon that got hit with some pretty darn heavy nerfs when mod power was changed. Luckily, a new item has emerged to make it still very solid. Hunter and Gunslinger are your best class options, of course, with the Shroud skill being made for Deceit since it has to reload every 6 bullets. You want Supercharger as the mutator and definitely Bottled Shadeberry for the concoction. Nightweaver's Grudge grants us 15% extra crit chance with haste, and that haste is extremely important here. Next, we're going to wear the new Feathery Binding Ring from the second DLC, increasing projectile speed and lowering weapon charge time. This is going to double if you have on haste, so it pairs very well with the Grudge Amulet. Atonement Fold grants more crit chance and activates that amulet 24/7. Archer's Crest further improves charging speed, letting you shoot very quickly. And finally, we have the Ring of Flawed Beauty, since we will be relying on Weak Spot for a main source of damage and creating it as much as possible. You basically walk into a fight, pop the mod on the Corrupted Rune Pistol, shoot for a bit to get that corrosion on, switch to Deceit, activate both skills, now you're gonna melee, and then start firing with extreme speed. Edgelord on the melee will make you do this pretty quick, reducing the lag time between melee and range damage. And now repeat that loop until the boss is dead. Great for bosses who have no weak spot or a hard to hit one. Do be aware, however, that for some reason several bosses have this weird mechanic where even once you activate a weak spot, you still need to aim at their actual weak spot where it would be to get the highest damage. It's kind of weird, but it's pretty common on some of the Nerud bosses. It's pretty darn fast, and Probability Chord is always going to be good instead of Flawed Beauty if you're not that good at looping the weak spot fast enough. Next, we've got a really fun one, being the Ford's Scattergun. Now, I've never been a huge fan of this item personally, as it reloads really slowly. However, you can stack out some really nice damage and stagger to make up for that. We're going to use Hunter and Challenger for really close-up crit damage. Twisting Wounds for the mutator hits bleed onto enemies, activating our amulet. Abrasive Whetstone increases crit chance and damage since bleed is active on the enemy. Probability Chord increases our crit. Atonement Fold increases crit chance and bleeds us. Braided Thorns increases crit chance, and the Ravager's Bargain grants more damage and crit chance since we are bleeding. The theme is all about bleed, and you can reliably hit about 4 damage once all things are set up, which is pretty darn satisfying. Be sure to throw on the Regrowth trait to not die from bleeding, and the relic here is largely to take quick for some more range damage and good gray health healing. I do highly recommend the Tranquility Font concoction as well, since we do want to hit the target we are aiming at. Overall, not an OP, meta, or broken build compared to, say, Plasma Cutter or Deceit, but extremely fun and a nice way to use this gun I otherwise avoid altogether. And again, using a new ring, which is the idea as well. Just be sure to bring along extra ammo boxes, as this gun is a shotgun and they eat ammo fast. If you don't equip your sidearm much, you will want them for sure. Great build for elites and really solid if weak spots are available, but they are not required, which is kind of nice. Now, this one I'm going to call the Ranger, because while I used the Corrupted Deceit for this video footage, I highly recommend not using that and instead using any of the 3 bows. All of them are equal in damage at this point, with it being down to utility over power as the final say. I tested the Corrupted Deceit because I wanted to compare it with the regular version, and what I found is that it fires super fast, which is funny to watch. However, do not use this gun. The devs need to do some serious fixing with it, as it just does not work correctly. When it works, man, that damage is crazy high, but sometimes it doesn't activate whatsoever even when it should, and on the One True King, the entire mechanic of this gun is just non-existent. It's completely broken. So remember, the big change for this build is instead of Sequence Shot on the mutator, you're going to run Supercharger. That's pretty much the only option for bows, and Savior, which works with this as well. Then you can replace the Ring of Flawed Beauty with the Probability Chord when running those other options as well. Worn Dog Tags increases fire rate and speed while also decreasing weapon charge time. Feathery Binding does the same and is doubled since we will once again have haste on. Anastasia's Inspiration grants that haste that we need, as we will have healing in our traits. Archer's Crest increases weapon charge time even more, and then you do want to run Probability Chord, as the gun I used here is just bad right now. Basically, it seems like the new way to play with these charged weapons is to not actually go for damage at all, and instead fire them as fast as possible. This is actually incredibly fun and makes them deal similar DPS to before. Plus, you can instantly perfect charge all the bows and savior with the press of a button for the best ease of use. I personally recommend the Shielded Heart, as triage with regrowth is enough to heal you passively, and that defense is so clutch when you actually need it. The Worn Dog Tag Amulet is actually pretty darn good, and I thought we'd be nerfing our damage quite a bit here, but it's so dang fast you barely notice. Way more fun to use bows this way, I can guarantee you that. Next, we have the Infinite Monarch build. And now, for those who don't know, Monarch is actually just a cheat gun. The mod grants it auto tracking where you place it, letting you never aim whatsoever and still hitting weak spots. This gun also has some crazy high crit chance, letting it be powerful all the time. Add on the new 1000 Cuts mutator and you're instantly landing some really large red numbers. We want Nightweaver's Grudge for the haste and crit chance, Atonement Fold to activate that amulet and grant more crit chance, Probability Cord as we do focus on crit damage, Offering Stone since this gun fires very quickly, and Devoured Loop so you can use your skills infinitely. If you do not have the Devoured Loop, the Braided Thorns Ring should work well instead. Basically, you're going to lock onto the boss with the mod and then just hold the button down while focusing on dodging. Pop your skills every time the Devoured Loop regens them and the bullets are shot out quicker than you could ever imagine. My one and only issue with this particular setup is that you do actually lose life over time from Atonement Fold. I could not fit in all the traits to negate that while also building into Leech like I wanted to. But it is fine if you're in combat, as dealing any amount of damage instantly heals you back up fully. Pretty easy change, however, that you can make yourself if this annoys you. Monarch is again just a straight up cheat. Yes, it will deal less damage than other guns, but it will never ever miss and can hit multiple targets at once. Specifically, it instantly defeats Gwendol, which is kind of funny. I recommend you try that, and the best weapon for sure for the Nightweaver. A nice build to have on hand when aiming gets annoying, and not using Hunter on a range build is kind of fun sometimes. Plus, that free revive from Challenger is something I forgot about completely, and man, it's so nice to have. Finally, we have the Plasma Cutter build. Infinite ammo, never need to worry about the overheat, and that damage is crazy high. This gun here suffers heavily when not hitting weak spots, and there is no way to fix that, unfortunately, so do be aware. 1000 Cuts as the mutator is definitely a must, and the Tech 22 with Extender is excellent for dealing with weird orb mechanics on the rude boss fights. Zero Divide Amulet grants infinite ammo and 15% more range damage, just a straight up unfair item that eases up the tension in every situation. Microcompressor reduces charge rate and means zero charge at all when the mod is active for sure. Xania's Malice is great for that weak spot bonus. Akari Warband helps with crit since you will likely dodge when using a build like this at least a few times. And Braided Thorns also ups that crit chance. And we also went into lifesteal to avoid doing anything whatsoever but lasering down the boss. I honestly think this is the current best ranged gun and build, as it's extremely easy to use like this. That infinite ammo is incredibly unnecessary, yes, but once you've used it, it's tough to go back, man. And for Annihilation or anything with massive weak spots, it's going to melt and melt fast. The best thing to do is rack up a bunch of Rampage stacks and then activate the gun's mod, just to have your best damage when it's finally fully active. But it doesn't really matter that much if you hit it early on or something. And if you're really having that much of a hard time, you can always swap the classes just to get one free revive, which we all love. So there you have the top 5 range builds I bully Apocalypse with now after the DLC. As always, you can modify things here and there to make it your own, but the templates should get you going in a very solid direction. I specifically like the Forward build and the Plasma Cutter builds as they feel the most fun. But the idea here was again to use some of these different DLC items in these other builds, except for Monarch because the old gal simply works like a charm. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and can now make some decent headway into some ranged builds yet again. They might have nerfed crit, but they will never stop us from crushing these bosses with it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.